take power away from the rich and elites. This is a man who...
What's the argument against Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Harriet Tubman? Do we have to do a history lesson?
But why over anyone else? Why over Andrew Jackson?
I mean, because I think she represents the importance of regular people in this country taking justice and history in their own hands and doing the right thing.
But the purpose of commemorative faces on money is not just for great
women
Americans.
Like her, if you're a conservative, you should love Harriet Tubman. She was a gun-toting abolitionist. She was a everyday American hero.
And then at 250
I don't know, but my point is, I think
when a debate over who's featured on U.S. currency turns into a much bigger argument about history, legacy, and politics. That's exactly what unfolds in this heated exchange between Abby Phillip and Republican commentator Brianna Lyman. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure you stay until the very end, because I'll break down what was said, why this debate has people talking, and share my full perspective. Let's get into it.
10 years ago, a plan was introduced to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. So what's the status of that now? Here's the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Is Treasury still planning to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill?
We are not at present.
Bessent didn't elaborate on that, but when he was asked about plans to put President Trump's image on a potential $250 bill, he left the door open.
Well, the 250 requires an act of Congress because you can't have a living person, and it was to commit for the 250th anniversary. For us to change on an existing bill, whether it's a 1 through 100, takes many years in advance.
Over the last several months, a lot of people have asked me, what's up with the Harriet Tubman thing? Now we know it's not going anywhere because they're really focused on getting Trump's name, his signature, his face on our currency. For what reason, I'm really not sure.
Well, and to be clear, the $250 bill is commemorative, so it's not necessarily legal tender that's going to be out in circulation. I also think it's important to note that under Joe Biden, they also delayed the Harriet Tubman bill, so it's not just necessarily a Trump problem. That being said,
they revived it, and it takes time.
Sure. That being said,
I don't think it's fair to say that they delayed it.
Look, you put faces on money to commemorate American icons, and I think that there are only a limited number of bills: 1, 2, 5, 10, 20. 150. So there has to be a very selective process. And Harriet Tubman absolutely deserves recognition, which she has recognition already. But I do think that the burden is put on Democrats to explain why Harriet Tubman, first of all, out of every option, hold on, let me finish, please. Okay, right. Out of every option, especially someone like Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is a man who nonetheless, he saved the Union during the nullification crisis. He was a war hero in 1815. He actually vetoed the second charter of the bank, which was seen at the time as a way to take power away from the rich and elites. This is a man who...
What's the argument against Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Harriet Tubman? Do we have to do a history lesson?
But why over anyone else? Why over Andrew Jackson?
I mean, because I think she represents the importance of regular people in this country taking justice and history in their own hands and doing the right thing.
But the purpose of commemorative faces on money is not just for great
women
Americans.
like her, if you're a conservative, you should love Harriet Tubman. She was a gun-toting
it's not an argument.
Abolitionist.
Not to mention that
she was a everyday American hero.
And then at 250
I don't know, but my point is, I think in fairness, I don't hear conservatives saying she does not deserve any kind of recognition.
What she just said. I didn't say any kind of recognition.
The conversation has always
we have to make a case for why Harriet Tubman.
But this administration is
why should she displace Andrew Jackson?
The argument is about the replacement of Andrew Jackson. That was the initial argument, and that was why there was pushback initially. Put her on a new bill. I don't care. I mean, I don't think.
Put her on the
250. Put her on the 250. So I would be okay with that as well.
Is Donald Trump on the 250?
I don't
they would
think
have to
he
pass
should be on it. But it's not going to happen. I don't think it should. I think it was stupid for them to even have this conversation. I get that Harriet Tubman is deserving of something, 100%. Put it on a new bill. This idea that we're going to suddenly just remove people from tender for political reasons, for historical, whatever the reason is, you just open up a slippery slope. Why specific to Jackson? Why not Washington? Why? But you can make these arguments forever. So why don't we just be respectful and say a new bill?
Look, I mean, Harriet Tubman represents everything that Donald Trump is not, right? There's somebody who put her body on the line, who was a regular person.
Donald Trump was shot and nearly killed for trying to be president.
Stop. Okay.
No, it did happen. I hate to remind
I mean,
you.
my God. Okay, well, you should talk to the MAGA folks who don't believe that Butler was real, but
That
that's
is
a different
not
conversation.
something that's an
There's
actual
a lot of people out
conversation.
there that are saying, including Candace Owens.
You believe that it's not real?
No, I believe.
Okay, well, then just accept it.
But regardless,
Wait, can we talk about the bill?
Let's talk about the bill instead of making it about something else. I mean, Harriet Tubman put her life and her body on the line. She deserves recognition. Donald Trump is desperate for some type of cultural relevancy. He's putting his name on everything. He put his name on our passports this year. He's putting his face on the dollar bill. It's disgusting.
He put his face in the passport, which, as far as I know, has never been done before.
He put his name on the Kennedy Center, which has now been removed. He put his name on the passport.
Here's what a viewer says. We have slave owners on bills. We can have Harriet on a bill.
Agreed.
And it would be the first African American on legal tender. I mean, in 250 years of American history, there has never been an African American on a bill.
I'd argue MLK is probably a better option than Harriet Tubman if we're trying to find someone who fits a certain demographic.
The universe of honorable people who could deserve such an honor is massive. The question that keeps coming back to me is, why is President Trump so obsessed with all of this self-aggrandizement, putting his name and face on the passport, on dollar bills, on buildings all over Washington, D.C., marring buildings and changing the names illegally to put his name on it? It is in such poor taste and out of step with exactly where the country happens to be at the moment. It's bad for him and his legacy, I suspect, and bad for the party that he is supposed to represent. And it doesn't really seem to serve the country in any sort of way.
Well, he's a narcissist. That's why he wants to put his name on everything, because he's a narcissist with a frail ego who wants affirmation and approval and wants to build legacy and thinks that's the way he does it, not understanding that the first and next Democrat who comes is going to remove all of that. He literally is like the human version of a dog that wants to pee on every hydrant in his way and mark his territory.
I mean, but he's doing it because he doesn't have a legacy, so he's trying to force
so
one
false.
We're with that imagery, we'll...
At the end of the day, this conversation raises much bigger questions than just who should appear on U.S. currency. It's about history, legacy, and how a nation chooses to recognize the people who shaped it. Whether you agree with the arguments made on the panel or have a completely different perspective, I'd genuinely like to hear your thoughts. Do you think Harriet Tubman should be featured on U.S. currency, or should the current designs remain unchanged? Let me know in the comments below, because I'm always interested in hearing different viewpoints. And if you enjoyed this video, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you more political commentary and analysis. We're getting closer to our next big milestone, and your support truly means a lot. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.